Good evening. Call to order the regular session of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Tuesday, August 15th, 2023. We do have a quorum present. The first item on the agenda is consider the minutes of the July 18th, 2023 joint meeting with the Overlay District Board. If there are no additions or corrections, may I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Motion was by Francis.
Second.
Second is by Karen. You're next. Vote now. Motion passes 7-0. Okay, next item is a regular hearing. This is in consideration of 3 alternative standards to the Lewisville Unified Development Code regarding tree mitigation, landscaping, and exterior building materials related to a proposed industrial development located on the north side of Mackenzie Street, approximately 100 feet west of Red Bud Street, as requested by Kyle Brusveen, EKB Design Works, on behalf of Lucky's Barbershop, the property owner.
Good evening, Commissioners. Mackenzie Industrial Park is a new office warehouse development that's looking to develop on the north side of Mackenzie Street. They first began the development process here in Lewisville back in the early 2022, which was prior to the adoption of the Unified Development Code. They made a formal submittal less than a month after Unified Development Code was adopted in December. One of the late additions to the UDC, or Unified Development Code, was the requirement that hackberries be mitigated over 12 inches diameter at breast height. The original development took into account all the additional tree mitigation that was required on the site, but did not take into account in the budget the hackberries. As this was a late addition, staff was given the guidance that we would work with developers who were affected by this. And so they're asking an alternative standard to not require that these hackberries be required to be mitigated for this development. Furthermore, there's an potential upcoming project to add a new intersection on East State Highway 121 Business, as shown in the exhibit on the screen right now, which will require the realignment of both Red Bud Street and Mackenzie Street. This realignment will take a large portion of this site that the applicant was not made aware of until the later parts of this development. They're requesting 2 additional alternative standards to help with this right-of-way dedication. One would allow the landscape buffer to be less than 30 feet. By the landscape ordinance, you're required a 30-foot landscape buffer with the tree, canopy tree every 30 feet, ornamental tree, understory tree every 30 feet, and a row of shrubs, which they were providing, as you can see in the landscape plan. This right-of-way dedication will take away a large part of this landscape buffer. And this was a very late addition as of last week to this development process. And they were looking to have their civil plan signed at this point. So they're willing to work with the city and donate this required right-of-way, which will help this realignment effort. But they're requesting alternative standard first to the landscape buffer and to allow the trees that they were proposing to plant to still count for their mitigation fee, as well as allow the buildings still to remain metal buildings. As to have metal buildings, you would be required to have the full 30-foot landscape buffer. This sheet is showing all the hackberries that they would be required to mitigate. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. The applicant is also here available if you have any questions for him as well.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any discussion or questions for staff?
I have a couple.
Okay.
In terms of the terminology, the alternative standards versus what might be a variance in any other circumstance, are they different, or is this one, this definitely lends itself to a one-off?
So with the Unified Development Code, we have updated our terminology. Now a variance is only something that can be approved by the Zoning Board of Adjustment, and that is an alternative to a zoning regulation. So these are to the Unified Development Code, and as such, all variances to the Unified Development Code are alternative standards to that code. And that's just the new naming convention moving forward.
Thank you. So are we, would this just be for this situation, or does it extend, once we decide, and the council decides, does it extend to any other new business that comes before us?
Right.
Are we creating something, in other words?
Yes, so this would be for this particular case. The reason that we are in support of these is very situational. The Hackberries, because they had started that process long before we had adopted Unified Development Code and submitted so closely after adoption. So it's very situational why we're supporting that. As far as the other two alternative standards, those are just because they're willing to work with the city and donate this right away now, which helps out with this, with a future capital improvement project.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah,
Questions,
I have a
discussion?
few additional questions.
Yes,
So
Ryan.
what happens on the corner property? This is what, adjacent to the future right-of-way?
Right, so once the project, will be going to the Blue Ribbon Committee sometime next year, and if approved by that committee and turns into a capital improvement project, then the city will go through its typical process of acquiring that right-of-way, typically by making an offer to that property owner or the means and measures that our engineering department does for these projects.
So at this current time, are they going to dedicate right-of-way, or is this only if that?
No, they are
passes?
dedicating right away. The plat has not been filed yet. And so once these alternative standards are granted, they're then moving forward with the plat and revising the civil set of documents, the engineering site plan. And to Jack's point, there's actually a variance tied to this as well to reduce the front yard setback. And that is proposed to go to the Zoning Board of Adjustment the first Wednesday of September. I believe that's the 6th.
So on the diagram that we're looking at here, the landscape drawing, the new edge of the property line is about a foot or two from the corner of the building, is that? how
Right,
I
and
read
these
that?
are, as all these conversations just happened within the last week, we did meet with the engineer of this project just today. They're providing updated plans, which is going to move that building 5 feet from what is shown here right now.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification.
Of course.
Okay, I think we're good.
Thank you.
Okay, commissioners, if there is no discussion or any further questions for the owner, may I have a motion, please?
Move to approve and send to city council.
Second.
Motion is by Karen, second is by Aram. Vote now. Motion passes 7-0.
Commissioners, this item will be considered by the City Council on Monday, August 21st, 2023 at 7 o'clock p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We will begin the public hearings at this time. The first one is consideration of a special use permit for a funeral home on approximate .99 acres out of the J. Sutton Survey, abstract number 1155, Zone General Business District. It's located at 697 South Stemmons Freeway, as requested by Ricardo Carrillo, Carrillo Funeral Homes, on behalf of Carrillo Funeral Homes Incorporated, the property owner.
Good evening, Commissioners. Carrillo Funeral Homes is seeking to change the use of the building at 697 South Stemmons Freeway. It's located in the General Business Zoning District within the I-35 Overlay Transition Subdistrict. The building is just under 6,000 square feet and has frontage along South Stemmons Freeway. Just with the change of the use within the I-35 overlay transition, the only update that's required with the I-35 overlay is an update to the off and on-street parking. So 52 parking spaces are required, and 58 parking spaces are being provided, with 14 of those being stacking spaces. 3 trees exist in the parking lot, and 4 new trees are planned to be planted, exceeding the required 7. The building will maintain its existing 100% stucco exterior, shown above, and they'll be painting the building with a new white facade. And that doesn't trigger any other requirements with the I-35 overlay. The applicant is proposing a new single-tenant wall sign on the building and a low-profile monument sign, and a existing pole sign is on the site. With that, staff typically, with special use permits, recommends the condition that the pole sign be removed, and that can be seen with the JR 51 special use permit and the Auto Park Dallas special use permit that have recently gone through. With that, staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of this special use permit with the condition that the existing pole sign be removed. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Commissioners, any questions for Joe?
I was going to ask about any potential traffic impacts for this use for their operations, being that close to Stemmons and high volume traffic patterns already during events, funerals, that sort of thing. Any concern about that?
The parking meets the standard required by the Unified Development Code. A traffic study wasn't done with it. The 14 stacking spaces are for funeral services and for the cars to then go out, but a traffic study wasn't done with this case.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think in regards to traffic, this is a fairly small funeral home. I think if there's a very large funeral, it would probably be held elsewhere.
Okay.
This would just facilitate the smaller funeral homes with probably very little traffic generation, usually during the day as well, and they have direct frontage and connection to the frontage road, so shouldn't impact the main lanes of the freeway.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff or Joe? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I am going to open the public hearing at this time. It appears that I have 3 individuals that would like to speak on this item.
Do we need an action on the previous item? Or is this the same item? Was this, okay.
Did we not,
Okay.
did we not finish? I think we,
You did.
yeah, we
Okay.
did.
Yeah,
Thank you.
this is the same.
Yeah, okay. Don't confuse me.
Sorry.
All right, so I'm going to open the public hearing for item 3 regarding the funeral home. I think I'll go ahead and call out whose name I have here first. It looks like it is Santos Martinez. If you would sign in and
Yes,
state
ma'am.
your name for the record.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Santos Martinez, 5737 Quay Drive Northeast, Rio Rancho, New Mexico, 87144. Madam Chair, we don't have a large presentation, but I just want to point out some things that I think is easier on the laptop here. While they're getting that set up, we agree with all the other items that staff has recommended. That we comply with the parking, we provide more landscaping. Because this is a smaller funeral home, as you heard from staff, we're going to make a right turn when we go out. So we're really not blocking anything in the residential neighborhood. In fact, I believe there was some questions about some of the fencing on the back of our property. We can make repairs or replacement, and we've agreed to do that as well. I just wanted to point out the property owner would really like to keep the existing sign that's there today, the pole sign. And one of the reasons being is, I'm going to show you 2 examples. Well, let me go here. It's asking me to sign in. And I forgot my email. Oh, great, thank you. Apologies. I don't really want to use the full 10 minutes, but I'm glad I have 10. While staff is doing that, just, I know my address is a little different, but I'm the planning director for the Village of Angel Fire, New Mexico. And one of the things that caught my eye about this case and the significance of the pole sign is that we received notification from the Census Bureau back in January, February, with a subdivision map of the entire village with a red pencil and a purple pencil to identify all the new streets that have occurred since census map was done. Add the names, show the length of the new roads, where roads had been mislabeled, correct the labels. And I've noticed that when we submitted that back to the Census Bureau, Google updated their maps, and most of it was wrong. So one of the concerns we have with this condition of removing the existing pole sign is that this is one of the functionalities on Google, and that since this is a new location for this service for the Carrillo Funeral Homes, making sure that patrons and families can find this location is important. You know, you can only access this property on the South Service Road of I-35. You can't get here from the exit off that ramp into the property without passing it and coming back around. And so we feel it's important for folks to be able to find the property as best and as easy as possible. And this is a functionality that you do have with Google. You can click on edit, you can highlight the segment of road, and then you can request to change the name. And so understanding that, and where I work in Angel Fire, the transfer station is located at someone's house because Google has mislabeled it. And so that property owner has a sign, this is not the dump. You've already passed it. It was down the hill, I'm at the top of the hill. Why would you be down this street? So we have a concern with the removal of the one sign folks can utilize to see this property north or south on I-35 to make sure that they get to the spot. Staff had mentioned that we are providing a little more trees than what's required. I know this is short notice, but while having dinner, I thought, what if we added another tree to hide the actual pole? Maybe an ornamental tree, something with color, because the property owner to the north of us has already installed a brand new fence and has stained it. It's 6 feet. If we did something on the other side, on our side of the fence, that would hide the pole but keep the sign. So we're adding more trees along the frontage road, and we are also adding some in the back. But we would like, understanding this, that anyone can do this. Google is proprietary. It's not regulated by the city of Lewisville or anyone in this room. Anyone can come in and make this edit. And then it's up to the engineers in California to say, are we going to change it or not? We'd really hate for patrons who are looking for this establishment as the first location in Lewisville without that sign to help find our property. So all the other conditions that staff has recommended, we're fine with that. Adding the landscaping, making sure we comply with parking, the ability to change the sign that's on the building now to our sign and adding the monument sign as well. We're fine with all that. The property owner would really like some way to keep the existing sign so that patrons can find it. And if there's an amendment to the condition that helps provide some screening to the actual pole, we're open to that as well. Stand for any questions you may have. The architect for the project is here if you have any questions on the design or the layout of the property too. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so my question for staff at this point, following his presentation, regarding the pole sign, is this something that is signified by the 2025 plan, or I mean the overlay district board, and can we even make that kind of adjustment here?
Yeah, so we have, as Joe mentioned in his presentation, with all SUPs, since we've started doing SUPs in 2013, I want to say, have been requesting removal and all cases, the pole sign has been removed within 2 years or some relatively short time frame from the date. So that's something we've done with all SUP requests. It's not specific to the I-35 overlay. The I-35 overlay does not address signage at all.
Okay. Okay.
It also is in alignment with the long-range plans for the community. The city did adopt the I-35 redevelopment plan, and one of the recommendations in that plan was to really put beautification efforts on steroids. One of the big problems identified was excessive sign clutter along the corridor. So that's why the city has been very consistent for 10 years with every SUP. For any new construction, only allowed the monument signs, and any, as Michelle said, any businesses that were backfilling an existing location that had a pole sign, they were required to take that down. We had one exception where there was active road construction, and they were allowed 3 years because of the construction. But right now, we're kind of in a lull with the construction.
Okay, so consistently, we are removing them within 2.
Yes.
In one case.
There have been
years.
no exceptions now for 10 years straight since the SUP program was adopted.
The mitigation of hiding the pole is not really relevant in this situation, is it?
That's not really a technique that's been employed previously citywide. Like I said, it's really a citywide thing, but particularly on I-35, since that's the main thoroughfare through the entire city. And like I said, the whole purpose of the overlay was to greatly increase the visual quality of development along the 9-mile corridor going through Lewisville.
Right, okay. All right. At this point, let's go ahead and move on to Mr. Griffith. You like to speak on this item?
I just had a few comments. I'm Chris Griffiths with the JST Architects for the project. And when you come down off of the service road after you hit Main Street, there is limited visibility with the barricade that you wouldn't really be able to see the monument sign. We also have some existing live oak trees, one in the courtyard and one just to the left-hand side of the sign that's pretty developed right now and maybe 15 or 20 years old, that is starting to get an umbrella on it too. And so we are going to replace the sign on the building that's kind of high, but the monument sign is not that visible based upon the concrete barriers that are alongside the service road right there currently.
And you're talking about the opposite side from where the funeral home is. You're talking about the northbound direction that it's not seen?
No, heading south. Well, heading northbound, you won't see the monument sign.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a very quick glimpse to see even the building sign heading north, because we do have a big live oak tree right on the corner of that building, sitting on that southeast corner of that structure.
Okay.
And so that blocks the northbound lane of the building sign, and with the low 4-foot concrete barrier, the monument sign is unseen. And so we just wanted to have the most success for him to have a thriving business and people could see it and identify it before you actually pass it, or you can't see it and then you're up to the next exit on the freeway.
Okay.
And so I'm here to answer any other questions, though.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Griffiths?
Do any of the renderings we see have a location of the proposed pole sign?
It sits in that triangular green yard, and it's right here.
Okay. There.
And then the monument proposed is at the entrance.
So here's the pole sign right here.
Thank you.
And then the low-profile monument sign is located along the driveway right here. If you can, I've got the mouse over it on the screen if y'all can see it.
Thank you for pointing that out. Is there any other place where it would describe the size of that sign?
To describe the pole sign?
The
Street view.
Yeah.
Joe, you're very quick. Okay, thank you.
There we go.
And we're planting 3 or 4 trees right there in the corner of that area, and then a few more down along the, in the islands that we're providing in between the parking.
Any discussion, questions?
I have a question. With this I-35 work that's going on, is there going to be any reconfiguration further down the line in that entrance area, portion of the service road?
Yes, with the Three Bridges project,
Yeah.
they'll probably be implementing the corridor-wide relocation of ramps. So right now, the Fox southbound exit is
Yeah.
right before you get to Fox.
Yeah.
And I think it's right adjacent to this. I think the off-ramp misses this property.
It just like barely
starts,
misses it. Yeah.
So you'd have to turn into the El Rancho Shopping
Yeah.
Center and come back through the shopping center. But after the reconstruction, most of the off-ramps, or at least the off-ramp for Fox, will be immediately after Main.
Okay.
So you will be so far back you won't even see the sign. So really, by the time in the ultimate configuration, they're basically changing each of the intersections from I think they're considered diamond intersections right now, as far as the way the ramps are configured, to where they're more like X configurations, where most of the weaving, the changing of lanes occurs on the frontage roads instead of on the freeway main lanes to make it safer.
So there will not be an off-ramp right there anymore? We're done.
Correct.
Yeah, it'll be.
Based upon, and I believe the final configuration shows the Fox off-ramp will be immediately after Main Street.
Will be everything for 121.
And
Okay,
then the
thank you.
traffic that gets on the frontage road at Main cannot get on until right before Fox.
Yeah.
So each one of the intersections, it'll look like a giant X, the way the ramps will be configured. Basically the reverse of what we have right now.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Were you aware of that, Mr. Griffiths? What we're going to be doing to the
I wasn't
changing the
aware of
road?
how they're going to realign. It's that the visibility of the monument sign currently, I guess, with the barricades, I guess, for the next so many years until all of that is
Finished?
completed.
Yeah,
And
okay, all right.
we just wanted to have him, I guess, have as much success, people locating and finding the place.
Yeah,
for
I do
his
understand
first
that.
Several years, yeah.
Okay, all right. And I guess Mr. and Mrs. Barfneck, did you want to speak on the item, one or the other of you, both?
Do we need to come up here?
Please, no, please come up. This is taped and then put on the television, so without the microphone, we lose you.
Okay. We're John and Luann Barfnick. We own the property at 506 Ridgecrest, which is the first house on the left after the auto repair place that's there. I can't remember the name of it, I'm sorry. But first of all, we didn't receive our notice about tonight's meeting until yesterday afternoon, which did not give us very much time to consider any concerns that we might have or do any investigations as to what our questions are.
Okay.
I just want to confirm, we were told that there would not be a crematory at this funeral home. Is that correct, or do you know?
I would ask that of staff, is that
I
correct?
just want to confirm that.
There won't be.
There will not be a, okay.
Okay.
And then our next concern is, will there be any lighting or additional lighting that will be installed that might shine down into our property that would affect families? It's tenant occupied currently. So that's a concern I have.
What is the lighting proposed for this?
So I don't have any lighting, but with any engineering site plans, that they'll have to submit a lighting plan is required with it to ensure that it doesn't exceed our spillover standards.
Okay, well, then we would like to request that any lighting that's installed not interfere with our property, not shine down into the house, into the bedrooms if they have sleeping children or whatever, what have you. Also, do we have any idea what their hours of operation might be?
I don't have that exactly. It's not something that we've addressed with the special use permit. But, I
Okay.
mean, to my knowledge, with funeral home
We
hours.
can, I mean, both the lighting question and the hours of operation, we could address to the applicant. If you have any other concerns, we could bundle them all up and address them to the applicant.
Okay. Then the last concern that I have, or that we have, is how is that going to affect the sellability of our house in the future? If we decide to sell the house, is living right behind or right in front of a funeral home going to affect the sellability? That concerns me greatly, and I haven't had time to investigate that. I am a realtor, but I haven't had time to check property values that are in that type of situation.
We have a realtor here that feels she can contribute to this.
Hi.
What's your opinion?
I'm with Love's Realty here in Lewisville, and I've lived in this area since 1992, so I definitely understand your concern. Speaking from the same profession, I don't think a funeral home is going to affect your property value any more than any other business. Like, I don't think that's going to be like a negative. Like, if that was a restaurant or anything, you know, that your neighborhood butts up against a very commercial area and a major state thoroughfare, right?
Okay.
That's your issue right there. I don't think specifically a funeral home is going to add a negativity or especially, you know, I do a lot of property management and leasing, and our market, God bless, knock on wood, is so robust right now that it's not going to affect your ability to rent it out or lease it. You know that. You know the numbers. I mean,
I'm not concerned about the rental aspect. I'm concerned about if we decided to sell it.
yeah, if you decide to sell it, I don't see a funeral home being there being a detriment to where people are going to want to be spooked away or go away, because there's all these other businesses right there too. They know whoever's buying into that neighborhood is going to know they're buying in a commercial area. See what I'm saying? So specifically, I don't see a funeral home being a negative towards your property value at all.
Okay. Well, this hopefully will give me some time to explore that, and if I have sincerely any other concerns, we can express that at the city council meeting. Am I correct on that?
Yes, this will go to the city council
Okay.
after we pass it to them. Our vote tonight merely passes this information on as far as our approval or disapproval of it. City council has the final
Okay.
say.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. No, I think. Did you get one more? No,
I had one
okay.
follow-up question, if it's
Yeah, go ahead,
not
Ron.
the right time. You asked about lighting. It appears that there are 2 site lights existing on site that will remain. Is that accurate, based on the site plan?
That is correct, yes. Whatever sight lighting is there will remain.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you can see one of them in the street view there, in the distance, right?
Yeah, we don't propose anything newer as far as lighting as you get towards residential. In fact, again, we're replacing the fence that's there now. Staff has recommended it. It needs to be replaced anyway, so we are doing that. I would point out that a funeral home is more like an office use. It's not a 24-hour use. We do have a 24-hour call center for folks to call, make arrangements, but we're not on the property 24 hours a day. We've been mindful, and staff's encouraged us to make sure that our buffers to the west are enhanced as best as possible. We're replacing the fence, but we don't anticipate any more lighting for concerns that the neighbors would have. And, you know, funeral services can be in the evening. Most of them are on weekends, just depending on how you can make arrangements with the family. But in all instances, in dealing with this circumstance, it's highly respectful, and it's not known for folks to be in the parking lot afterwards or things of that nature. So I think this is a very good operator with his establishments in Grand Prairie, Fort Worth, and Dallas. We'd like to provide services here in Lewisville and trying to be good neighbors like we are in our other communities.
So what are the general operating hours? I mean, I know.
Again, if trying to get arrangements with the families, you can have morning, afternoon, and early evenings. The idea is to be done by 8 or 9, depending if, is it a 6:30?
Yeah.
What services are the families requesting? in the memorial service ceremonies, but it's not intended to go beyond those typical hours.
So on a daily basis, like if there's not a service scheduled that day, generally how many employees are
5.
going to be there?
I would say 2 to 5 people would be
2 to
at this.
5, okay.
But, you know, if there's no services at all, it may be only, 2
Okay,
employees there.
got it.
But I would say that even when the discussion with the traffic, they would usually do chapel services at 10 or 10:30 and 1 or 2 o'clock. And so they're producing, when they leave with the 14 processional parking, and even if they had some coming around the back, if they had 20 cars going to a cemetery, it would be in probably non-traffic load times. Yeah,
Okay.
because they know that they don't like to do a processional at 5 o'clock
Yeah,
or
it's
4
not
o'clock.
conducive for the family or them either to.
Yeah, there's a lot of arrangements that we take into consideration with the family to make sure services are right and they meet the expectations that the families have. But we also have fundamental logistics with it. You know, we don't want to create traffic issues with I-35 people exiting off that. And so, but again, we're located, we can't go into the neighborhood at all. It's all off of the service road.
Yeah.
You're going to come in off the service road, you're going to exit off the service road as well.
Just a quick question. Is it safe to say that if you're not there in the evenings or on a regular night, probably most of those lights probably wouldn't be on anyway?
That's correct. It's almost, like I said, as an office use, and as when people leave or go home for the evening, things are shutting down, and we have lights for basically security and make sure the parking lot's clear, and we can monitor it. But we're not going to have floodlights looking west just to look west. That's not our intent at all. And I believe, you know, staff had mentioned we'd have to bring that with our permits as well, because we have to install a fire sprinkler system in this building too. And so in that review, our light photometric plans would come in and make sure they're in compliance as well. So it's not just a matter of us saying it. We're going to be reviewed by staff when we come in for
Okay.
Thank you,
Anyone
Madam
else?
Chair.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else that didn't fill out the piece of paper that would like to come forward and speak on this item before I close the public hearing on it? Okay, at this time, I will go ahead and close this public hearing. Staff, should we discuss this pole light, or this pole sign? Thoughts?
I don't have any discussion on that.
Pardon me?
I don't have anything on that.
I don't think that, yes.
On the pole sign, you have no, they want to keep it, and staff doesn't want to keep it, so it's, any discussion?
Go with the overlay.
Yeah, I would have to go with the overlay as well.
Okay, all right, well, we'll vote on that, but I just want to know if there's any discussion first. Okay, so at this time, I will entertain a motion on this item, please.
I recommend approval of the special use permit request with the condition that the pole sign be removed.
Motion is by Aram,
Second.
second is by Francis. Vote now. Motion passes 7-0.
Commissioners, this item will be considered by the City Council on Monday, September the 11th, 2023, where they will be holding a second public hearing and making a final decision, and that'll be at 7:00 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Okay, next item is a public hearing, item number 4. This public hearing is a consideration of a special use permit for a commercial amusement outdoor on approximately 3.17 acres out of the S.M. Hayden Survey. Abstract number 537. This is zoned light industrial district. It's located at the east side of Barfeck Lane, approximately 1540 feet south of Midway Road, as requested by Ronald Weigel, Endurance Development, on behalf of Pathfinder Sports LLC, the property owner.
Good evening, Commissioners. So the applicant is requesting to do a cricket sports facility with an indoor and outdoor aspect with it. With the outdoor, commercial amusement outdoor within the light industrial zoning district does require a special use permit. Also, I wanted to mention, before going through an overview of the site, within the backup and the staff memo within, it was referenced that an alternative standard was associated with this case, and that was an administrative modification that was approved by the engineering department prior to this, and that was to reduce the driveway spacing from 50 feet to 0 feet. And so that is done with this special use permit request and doesn't need any voting from the Planning and Zoning Commission today. Looking at the site, the applicant plans to develop a 19,200 square foot building for indoor cricket. As you can see next to it, the practice field is located on the east of the property. And it's located there purposefully to diminish noise and light impacts from outdoor activity with the residential property adjoining to the west of the property. A photometric plan, as mentioned with the previous case, is required with all engineering site plans submittals to ensure that light spillover isn't exceeded, to make sure that it's not going to be impacting the surrounding uses. Also, type 1 screening is required along the property line adjoining with the residential property there, and that requires a 6-foot screening wall and a 10-foot landscape strip with trees 50 foot on center. The applicant is providing those trees 50 foot on center with it, and then also shrubs along it. And it's going to be 8 trees within there shown on this plan. Also, 12 trees are planned throughout the parking lot, exceeding the 3 required. The building will consist of stucco and masonry block with a brick entrance on the east and north facade. The west facade adjoining the residential property will be 75% stucco, 12% masonry block, and 11% metal panel. The south facade will be primarily metal, but doesn't have any view from the road or from the adjoining property. Furthermore, a low-profile monument sign is proposed along the driveway, over here where my mouse is showing. With that, staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of this special use permit as presented. If you have any questions about this development, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions on this for staff?
No questions, just a comment. This ridiculously excites me. I come from a huge cricket family. My brother-in-law is an international and professional cricketer, and he's a selector for the Pakistani national women's team. So I've just grown up with cricket my whole life, so this makes me happy. I just wanted to say that.
I would just ask, again, excited to see it with all the development in Grand Prairie.
Yeah,
recently.
it's a great plus for Lewisville.
It's a great ad.
I mean,
the traffic implications, that is a Barfneck is a 2-lane divided or undivided? And how much traffic do we think would be generated?
I mean, with this case, a traffic impact analysis wasn't done. I mean, parking, like I said previously with the other development, is accommodating for this use. Barfneck is just a 2-lane road. There's other industrial uses throughout the area, so I think that traffic to the area probably isn't going to be impacted much throughout the day. I can't speak to it though, really. If the applicant, I'm not aware of the applicant being here today, but they'd be able to answer that a little bit better.
I would state that based on the number of parking spaces and the intended occupancy of the building, we're not terribly concerned about the traffic. I think the impact from the expansion of the Republic hauling facility will likely be a little bit greater, even though it will only be a personal vehicle car entrance on this side.
The practice field area, it says it's deemed to the east side. Is it that rectangular area only? I see there's a bunch of...
Yeah, where the lines shown here is where the practice field is intended to be.
Is that defined with fencing? Is that just natural grass? Is it turf?
Not that they haven't noted anything to be there for it. So I don't think they have anything planned to be there for that.
And did you already mention if there is outdoor lighting for that practice field?
Yeah, it's not shown here, but with the engineering site plan, they're going to be required to submit that. and that's going to have to meet all of our lighting standards within the Unified Development Code.
Yeah.
And we did work with them, and they did place the practice field over on this side to reduce any impacts with that residential property to the west, being behind the building and leaving a good amount of space there, so it's not.
Yeah, and I don't have a lot of knowledge with the game, but I've seen it. I know it's around McKinnish area quite a bit and
Yes.
Carrollton, but it seems like an undersized area of a field, and so I'm sure it's more of a practice-specific element. I'm just a little concerned of whether or not the natural grass area behind the building could also just be used for practice as well, so.
So with this concept plan, that is the extent of the outdoor area. If they wanted to expand it, we would have to modify the SUP and come back through the process.
Okay.
And how late does this place, what are the hours? Is it going to go into the night? Is it just during the day, or?
It'd be a question for the applicant. I'm not aware of the hours that they're looking to operate.
Yeah. I assume it's a business that has hours, but I do know that there's a lot of facilities out there now that you can access with codes and different, all hours of the night. So I would just be a little bit skeptical of the control in that aspect. It's a little bit like
If there's
have batting cages and things of that nature. And I know there's one at the Grandscape right now that is very popular. So I'm just curious how to monitor that later in the evening, but.
If there are concerns with the hours of operations, that could always be a condition of the special use permit approval. Unfortunately, we don't have the applicant with us tonight because I would like to hear their input on that. But that's certainly something that we can discuss or that the commission could make a recommendation on.
Ryan, would you like to make a recommendation on this item?
Would it be appropriate to get appropriate feedback from the applicant by tabling the item and bringing it back?
What do you think, Michelle?
Let me look at the calendar,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
Well, and there are residents behind it here? Is that, there's houses?
There's a residential property just to the west of it. The surrounding properties otherwise, there's another residential property here to the south, but it is a distance away. The rest of the uses throughout the area are primarily light industrial uses.
Did we get any letters of approval from the residents or any letters or complaints from?
Well, we haven't opened the public hearing yet, and I do know we have people here to speak. We have not received any written responses yet, but we do have folks that I know are here to speak on this item tonight.
Okay.
And to answer your question, I would say that there's two routes that we could follow if you wanted to explore that with the applicant. One would be making a recommendation this evening as to the hours of operation that you feel are appropriate, and we could work with the applicant to take that to City Council, and maybe he could propose a modification to that to the City Council as you're making a recommendation this evening. Alternatively, you could table the item to the September 5th meeting, which might mean that it would have to go, right now it's tentatively scheduled to go to City Council on September the 11th. It might then need to be pushed to September the 18th.
Any thoughts? Tabling or?
Can we hear?
Let's hear what they say.
Okay, let's hear what.
Can we hear?
All right, so we'll open the public hearing before we discuss further up here. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, so Mr. and Mrs. Barfneck, I understand that you would like to speak, so I'm going to open up the public hearing on this item, and if you'd please come forward.
We own the property that's just south and to the east, so we're actually connected to the southeast, the southeast corner of that property. We own the land just south of it. And that was basically what you're talking about. It's our concern is the hours of operation, the lighting, 7 days a week or what it's going to be, because we still use that as a residential property on that side, so
Okay.
that's our concern.
So you reside there right now?
What's that?
You reside there right now?
I don't, we have people that reside.
Oh, you have people, okay, that's
There's
another
people
rental.
residing
Got
there,
it,
yeah.
okay.
So, yeah, and they're a pretty quiet family, so.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, we just,
Okay.
that's, like I said, today was the first day we heard about it, so we didn't know all the questions to ask yet, so.
All right. Well, I guess we need to make sure we have the proper contact information for you so that doesn't happen again. I'm sure it wasn't just an oversight somehow, but maybe we don't have the proper information for you. If you want to check with staff, make sure that they do. I don't know, just guessing.
Anyway, that's the concern we have, is like the hours of operation, the lighting, and
Okay.
we don't know what everything's going on there, like the noise factor of that during the day or anything, so, I mean, I don't know, so that's our concern.
Okay. And Mr. Mahoney. Please state your name and sign in for me.
My name's Michael Mahoney. I live at 527 Barfnick Lane, Lewisville, Texas, 75056. And I live in the residence that's encapsulated by that property. Like this right here, as they had shown before.
Okay.
So I've lived there since 2006, so I've been there 17 years. And I married my wife in Baja California, Mexico, and have 2 children that have graduated from Lewisville ISD. And this is kind of been my home, and that I've worked for my whole life. And 62 years old, and so this is kind of the place that I've kind of plan on staying. And I just want to keep it close to what the zoning change is, and to oppose that. There's other things going on. I've been speaking with the developer and the owner for 2 years now, or a year, a little over a year. And things have, agreed and disagreed, because they approached me to ask for a letter of approval, so to speak, but they didn't clarify the situation. So it kind of broke down that way. So the owner from Pathfinder Sports, he told me the operation hours are going to be from 5 to 10 p.m. on the weekdays and weekends, so 7 days, which I just find that having an open entertainment next to a resident, and there's actually 2 of us that live there. There's a house across the street with a family with a small child, and then myself. And to approve a special outdoor permit on an unimproved street, which is just 1 lane, that barely can get 2 cars by there, is just incognizable to me. I just, the traffic, the hours, I mean, it's going to completely disrupt our quality of life, right? So they've already approved the Republic, which is going to bring about 120 cars a day. And the street only sees maybe 6 cars. It's a dead end, so maybe 6 cars at the most besides us residents. There's also open ag property being used for transient workers and for a landscaping company that has a lot of traffic coming in there and foot traffic. So the street's not lit, it's not improved, there's no drainage. We've had issues with drainage from the surrounding developments already, and we just, basically need protection and security and privacy throughout this process. And I just vehemently oppose the change for an open special permit for entertainment. If it was anything else, it wouldn't be an issue, but
Okay.
traffic, noise, lighting, all that is going to be a change of life, right? Change of style, or total change of life.
Okay,
For
thank
us.
you. Thank you, Mr. Mahoney. Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments for Mr. Mahoney?
Were the neighbors or that neighborhood given, I'm assuming that the city gave enough sufficient information or time for them or notification before this was brought to our meeting, I'm assuming?
So letters are sent out 10 days prior to the meeting. I know that Mr. and Mrs. Barfnick unfortunately did not receive theirs until just yesterday, unfortunately, and I'm not sure that's not standard. It usually travels quicker than that in the mail. I do know Mr. Mahoney has been in discussions and has been aware for a while, but we do send out the letters 10 days prior to the meeting. It does have all of our contact information so they can reach out and request any additional information they'd like.
And I just received my letter yesterday also.
Okay. Well,
Because
maybe-
today we're just voting on the special use permit, right?
It'll still.
Not necessarily
Correct.
that they're coming.
Right, we're
Okay.
only voting to either pass this on positively or negatively to the council.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Before I close the public hearing, I don't think I have anyone else that wanted to speak on this item. Is there anyone else who did not fill out the paper who would like to come forward and speak on this item tonight? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this public hearing. Jack, I tend to agree that I would rather hear from,
I think there's some information.
I
Yeah.
think we need to
clarity
hear
on.
from the applicant themselves. There's
Yes.
too many questions and variables, and
yeah, I'm of that
it's sad that they're not here, that we could address
Yeah.
a lot of these questions head on with them.
Yeah,
I think it should be tabled. If you ask me, that's my.
okay. All right, are we,
I would also add, and whether it's applicable tonight or for the future meeting, I think it's evident that we would need more information from a traffic study standpoint and road improvement standpoint to even remotely know if it's feasible or conducive to have that type of traffic in the evening. There's probably not even streetlights along that stretch of road, I'm guessing.
yeah, I don't know that they can get a traffic study done that fast, but,
No, they certainly can't.
but
if-
yeah, I think it's an important thing that probably should start to be added.
Because if we request it for the next one, and then it will just continue to
Yeah.
further prolong it, so.
Okay. All right, so I guess at this point, I will entertain a motion.
And staff would recommend that you continue the public hearing to the next meeting instead of tabling.
Okay, so then I already closed it, so I guess I need to reopen it?
No, we can continue the item,
Okay.
even though we've already closed the public hearing.
So we're not going to continue it, we are going to just, or we were going to continue it, not table it or not, okay. All right,
So you don't.
And
need a
that gives
Yeah, we do
everyone
need a
that's
motion.
here certainty as to what the date would be
okay,
for your
Okay.
recommendation.
okay. So we don't have a date, or do we?
Staff would recommend you continue it into the September 5th meeting. And we can bring the information we can get within that time and have the applicant here to answer those questions. And he might perhaps request to table it again, but I would recommend we table it to the September 5th meeting.
Okay, all right, so in that case, and Jack, what is your motion, please?
I move to continue to September 5th.
Okay, and
Second.
the second is by Francis. So we have motion by Jack, we have second by Francis. Vote now. Motion passes 7-0. This item will be continued until September 5th, 2023. Alrighty. The next item is another public hearing. This one is in consideration of a zone change from local commercial district to planned development multifamily district, and 5 associated alternative standards related to landscaping, screening, parking, and driveway spacing on 2.84 acres out of the Loup Bourgeois Survey, abstract number 52, located on northeast corner of FM 3040, East Round Grove Road, and South Euchre Lane, as requested by Maxwell Fisher of Zone Development, the applicant, on behalf of Havenshire Investments LP, the property owner.
Commissioners, the property located at 7120, my apologies, the property that's located off of FM 3040 and South Euchre Lane is currently zoned for commercial. The applicant is looking to rezone it to a planned development multifamily 3 to accommodate a 4-story affordable multifamily project. If you'll give me 1 second to get to the site plan. So the building is approximately 100,000 square feet. It's a multifamily building which will contain 90 units. 63% of these units are designated as affordable units, and 36% or 33 of the units are market rate units. The proposed site plan contains the building itself, an amenity area on the western portion of the building, as well as surface parking surrounding 3 sides. There are 2 proposed drives. One is off South Euchre and one off 3040, but the drive off 3040 is for emergency access only and will be gated. The architecture of the building is 65% brick and stone when adjacent to the public right-of-way. I know this is a very large PDF, so the computer's having a little bit of struggles getting the elevations here. And then the internal elevations will be 30 to 42% brick. The remaining building materials will be fiber cement board. There are a number of amenities that are associated with this, including a clubhouse, fitness center, a business center, children's playroom, dog park, a swimming pool, an outdoor barbecue area. I apologize about the technological issues here. Let's try this. There are a number of alternative standards that are requested with this plan development. I wanted to note that for a typical project, staff would not be in support of many of these alternative standards, but because they are providing much needed affordable housing to the city of Lewisville, staff is willing to work, was willing to work with the developers for many of these alternative standards. This is frustrating and embarrassing. I apologize for this. The alternative standards as follows. The first is to reduce the required landscaping along South Euchre Street from 30 feet to 5 feet and allow tree plantings in the parking lot tree islands. Per our landscape code, if the applicant is not providing 80% brick or stone materials, are required to provide a 30-foot landscape buffer that has a row of canopy trees, a row of ornamental trees, and a row of shrubs. Oh my gosh. Due to the nature of this development, they're only requesting a 5-foot boundary. This is along South Euchre Street. In this fuzzy drawing here, we can see it here. Along South Euchre Street, and they are proposing more additional landscape islands to provide landscaping in these areas. They're also looking to allow a variable width landscape strip along the eastern boundary of the site. So with our code, you're required to have a masonry wall and a 10-foot landscape strip. They do have a 10-foot landscape strip in a portion of the site, but it does come down into basically not a landscape strip at all near the southern boundary of the site. So they're requesting a variable width in this location, and then they will still have the required tree plantings where they can thrive in a healthy condition in this strip. They're requesting that, all right, here's the elevations. They're requesting that the fire lane and parking stalls encroach into the 30-foot landscape strip on the front portion of the building. In this portion where my mouse is hovering here, they have both parking and fire lane. Typically, we would not allow either the parking or the fire lane to be in this part of the landscape strip, but due to the constraints of this site and to allow fire turnaround, staff is in support of that alternative standard. And they're also requesting a reduced parking standard of 1.6 parking spaces for every unit. Per our code, it is 2 spaces per unit, though in our mixed use, we do allow 1.6 spaces per unit. We have approved this alternative standard in many other multifamily development. And staff has found that this 1.6 is really the lowest that we're willing to go with any multifamily that will provide adequate parking for development. And finally, they are requesting driveway spacing of 110 feet as opposed to 250 feet. So if you look at the driveway off 3040 and the driveway here for this existing use to the east, that's only 110 feet. Per our code, it's required to be 250 feet. Staff has no objection to this request as the driveway off 3040 is gated access and is only used for emergency uses. The Lewisville 2025 Vision Plan Update designates this area as diverse and thriving neighborhoods. Staff feels that developing and affordable housing meets the plan, which calls for a diverse range of housing choices that meets residents' needs. The applicant, Maxwell Fisher, my apologies. The applicant also has a presentation that they would like to give, if I can get this to load. If you can please give me 1 second. And I can bring this up in another way. If you have any questions for staff, I'm happy to answer them now. If not, I will.
Just something to clarify. The
Yes.
main entrance is off of Euchre.
Yes.
The 3040 is basically just the gated entry and more like an exit than,
Right, so it's gated, it's only for emergency access, that's it. So all the traffic of all the residents coming and going from there is only through Euchre.
One clarification, I think it's exit for tenants, correct? Yeah, it's exiting for tenants also.
Oh, my apologies. An exit for the,
And so, I have a question. So Euchre, it's a 2-lane road. It runs, there's a substantial development behind where they're going to put this in. And I don't know, I'm a little concerned about the amount of traffic that's going to be coming out onto Euchre. I mean, 90 units, 100, I mean, you're talking about, over 100 cars probably or more that will be regularly coming in and out. I mean, we're not concerned about Euchre and that creating a lot of traffic right there at that intersection?
right, our engineering department has overlooked this and is working with the applicant as far as right-of-way acquisition and any future Euchre improvements here. But our engineering department did not have any concerns from a traffic standpoint of this development, as well as the other developments just to the north of this.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Anything for John? Okay, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing and invite.
show us his presentation?
That's what I'm asking for.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Thank you. I'm inviting Mr. Maxwell Fisher to come up and show us his presentation.
Chair, Commissioners, my name is Maxwell Fisher with Zone Dev 2502 Grandview Drive, Richardson, Texas 75080, representing Palladium USA International. Ava Sashan with Palladium is also here to complete the presentation. I'll do the first 7 slides and she'll finish the last 5 if that's okay with you, Chair.
Sure.
We're excited to bring this project to you. Palladium is a first-class developer. Unlike most developers, they own and manage their properties. They're locally based, and so they will own this property for decades, and we can guarantee that. Whereas a lot of other developers will sell to another owner within 5 years or less. We do not sell, if hardly ever. In this case, we will not. So I want to talk a little bit about this property, why it remains vacant. It's the size of the property is difficult. It's not large enough to do a large shopping center, but then the biggest issue is the access. Because of the width of the property with respect to Euchre, we cannot have a full access driveway, direct access on Round Grove. And so a lot of retailers would pass up on the site because of that. And so I think it's a great residential infill development in that we do have some access. We have exit only on Round Grove, but we can have our main access off Euchre. And I'll get into that a little bit, what we're doing there from a traffic standpoint in a bit. So this is a 4-story single building. It's only 90 units. A lot of your multifamily developments that are market rate are 250 plus. This is a one it's a lot smaller. It's nearly a quarter of the size or a third of the size. It's elevator served because it's 4-story. We are constructing actually a right turn lane at the intersection, and that will serve all the public. In addition to dedicating our half on Euchre and having to build out Euchre for our half of the road there. So we are actually improving the width of Euchre as it exists today, or will be, in addition to that turn lane that you see sort of transitioning there as you head towards Euchre. So that'll be our main entrance off of Euchre, so that way we don't have a lot of traffic coming in and out directly on Round Grove. We'll have a transition onto Euchre first, and then, as I mentioned, exit only from Round Grove. This development will have all your first-class amenities that you see with your market rate development. It's a clubhouse. I'll get into that and show you some of those pictures, but we'll have a small dog area on this one. We'll have a pool with a shade area, basically within the development. The building encapsulate that area. We've worked with staff with some enhanced masonry to offset some of the variances that we're asking for. They ask us to do 65% masonry on the elevations that face the public. Sorry, those trees are actually shifted on there, but another variance we're asking for is because of the width of the property is reducing our buffer strip on Euchre, but we are doing some additional trees within the landscape area, and so it's going to create that landscape buffer with those green circles you see on there. They're supposed to be shifted into those landscape islands. So we kind of create that effect in addition to the additional masonry that we're providing. We are asking for a reduction in parking from your 2 spaces to 1.6. We'd like to better align the actual parking, the requirement to the actual parking demand. And these are some of our other communities where we actually counted parking. I actually counted the number of vehicles at 2 a.m. in the morning, and that's our peak hour. We even conservatively, we will have 0.7 cars per bedroom, and so we'll never need more than 120 cars. Now, you may ask, okay, well, what about you have a party or something on a Friday or Saturday? That's not at 2 a.m. Yes, but there are people who are not at home at that time who will be at home at 2 a.m. And so even if we had a gathering, the only way you could have a gathering is it has to be permitted by our management office, and so we would know how many people would be using like our clubhouse, et cetera. So we'll be able to govern how many cars would be coming in the facility. But even if there was some sort of occasion, we'd have an extra 25 spaces on site that would not be used even at peak hour. This is an actual rendering of the development from looking northeast from the corner. You can see it's well articulated. It will provide a great view at this intersection. And we're using a combination of brick and cement fiberboard, which is very comparable to some of the multifamily development that's happening here downtown as I drove in. We think this proposal aligns really well with the comprehensive plan. Your comprehensive plan basically screams for housing affordability, housing choices. I think the thing that really resonated the most is it says to create a cohesive and connected group of neighborhood, nonprofit, and business leaders who help keep neighborhoods thriving. with Palladium that is required to own this property for a certain number of years. You're getting an excellent management company. They're local. They're an award-winning management company, and they'll be here as a neighbor. So you know what you're getting. They're not going to be flipping it to some other developer who's out of town or other operator who's out of town who's not going to care about the property. We also have a courtesy officer that we let people rent free at the property, and they actually go around and make sure there's great security in our property. Because we give them free rent, they're required to do certain things to make sure the property's safe, checkpoints and that sort of thing. So it provides an element of security that other multifamily developments may not have. I will turn it over to Avis now to wrap up, and we'll be both available to answer any questions when I'm through. Thanks.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. Avis Shoshana, I'm the Executive Director of Real Estate Development with Palladium USA, 13455 Noel Road, Dallas, Texas, 75240. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. Just to give you a little bit of history about the Palladium Group, we are a company that has an over 150-year history of owning, developing, and management assets over 6 different countries. Our headquarters in the United States is in Dallas. We do have, as Maxwell mentioned, in-house property management. We do feel like no one can manage our properties better than ourselves. So we provide exceptional quality, and we build communities, not just apartments and homes for our residents. Maxwell did mention that we are long-term property owners as well. Just to give you a look at our interiors and what you can expect in terms of our quality, we provide 9-foot ceilings. You'll have an open concept, modern lighting. You can see very nice cabinetry with pools. Most high-end single-family homes don't have pools, nice wood-style flooring. We also offer stainless steel appliance packages. We also provide storage on our patios and balconies for our residents. And then we also do built-in wood cabinetry as well. So very nice open concept, again, for families. We do provide, again, we build communities, engage in social spaces. You can see a picture of our property in Fort Worth that we have. We primarily are in a metroplex, but all throughout the state of Texas. You can see even in the business lab, we have granite countertops. You can see our state-of-the-art fitness center, and then the children's playroom, which is very interactive with lots of activities and video consoles. So we have conducted some community outreach for this project. In particular, we held 2 neighborhood meetings. We worked with the neighborhood engagement office here with the city to outreach to neighbors within the notification area. So we had them on the 2nd and 16th. We actually got a resolution of support from City Council for our application to the state, and you can see a copy of that there. We have received additional letters of support from Serve Denton, Pet Supply Plus, which is in the shopping center just to the west, the Vista Park Shopping Center, the Managers Shopping Center, and some other nonprofits as well. So just in summary, we really do ask for your support of our development tonight. It would be our first development in Lewisville, and we're excited to be a part of your great city. But it was mentioned by staff that we're aligning with your 2025 vision plan. Again, this would be a nice pocket infill residential development that will support the retail that's existing on Round Grove. We are a highly reputable builder and developer that's well respected in the community, and our residents, they speak highly of us as well, and love to come out and talk about how they call Palladium Properties home. Again, City Council did approve our resolution of support, and staff is recommended approval tonight. So with that, I will be around to answer any questions. Thank you.
I have a couple. First of all, what will be the mix of apartments? 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms?
It's 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, and I have a breakdown for you. So we will have 24 1-bedrooms, 51 2-bedroom, and 15 3-bedrooms.
Excellent, thank you. Now, the rent ranges, does that depend on income?
It doesn't depend on income, but for the workforce units, it is set by the state. So for a 1-bedroom, that ranges from $580 a month to $1,160 would be the market rate, or the higher end of the workforce at 80%, because it's a true mixed income development. Our 2 bedrooms range from $696 to approximately $1,856, and then our 3 bedrooms would be $1,608 to $2,145.
Thank you. That's just exactly the information I wanted.
I have a question as well. In terms of the community being served, what's the nearest elementary school that would be to the area, or the nearest park?
That is a great question. I will have to, hold on, I have that.
Rockbrook across 3040 that way, or Lewisville Elementary?
About a mile.
On 121.
Yeah.
Hold on, I can tell you which schools our children will go to. Hold on.
While she's doing that, because this is only 90 units, we had another development where we actually did, or it's requested of us to do sort of a school impact, and with the number of units, you're only looking at about 40 kids, 40 students spread out across all 12 grades. So it's somewhat minimal, just because of the small size of the development.
And likely would be a hazardous bus route to be added by the school district because of the street.
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Hazardous bus route would be developed by the school district because of 3040 most likely also, particularly for elementary. So those children would be served by a bus route.
Oh, yes, I don't know why they wouldn't, yeah.
Okay, let's see. Sorry.
Rockbrook Elementary.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Do we have more speakers?
Find out in just a second.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your presentation.
Beautiful.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item that did not fill out a piece of paper? Please come forward and state your name, sign in. Having no one else come forward, I will go ahead now and close the public hearing. I guess not.
A question of staff. I know that there is a goal for accessibility to Parks and Rec from various areas. How does this fit in with the city goals?
So there is a park to the northeast or northwest right now, which is, I think it's called Oak Bend Park. We also have 2 developments, one that has a planned development that was approved to the north off Euchre that is dedicating not quite 2 acres to be used as a public park. So there will be parks just north on Euchre, so that they won't have to go towards 3040 to access a park.
I also have a question on the elevation. That is a natural, it's Vista Ridge, 4 stories in that area. Is there any concern over 4 stories towering over the residential areas nearby? Or has any assessment of that been done?
Because in the rear there's detention as well as parking directly to the rear of it, it's not necessarily as close to those residents directly to the north, just due to the design of the site.
The 4th floor will have a wonderful view. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no further discussion or question, may I have a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the zone change requested and the 5 associated alternative standards that's presented.
Second.
Motion is by Francis, second by Karen. Vote now. Motion passes 7-0.
Commissioners, this item will be considered by the City Council on Monday, September 11th, 2023 at 7:00 p.m. They'll hold a second public hearing and make a final decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Okay. The next item is our final public hearing for this evening. This one is a consideration of a zone change from office district and local commercial district to planned development estate townhouse district, and 5 associated alternative standards related to lot lines, screening, and driveways on 2.77 acres of land, legally described as Gary R. Levitt's Community Hospital Edition, Block A, Lot 1, and a portion of Lot 2, located on the front portion of 1720 Edmonds Lane, as requested by Innova Construction Group, the applicant, on behalf of Bantap LLC, the property owner.
Thank you, Commissioners. I am taking an alternative route with this PDF. The property located at 7120 Edmonds is currently zoned light local commercial. It's vacant at the front and has a commercial building at the rear of the property. The applicant is proposing to rezone the front portion of this property to a planned development estate townhouse, which will bring 16 single-family detached houses in this area. With this development, they are rerouting the traffic that this commercial property is using to an access easement that is existing on the northern end of adjacent commercial property. So the commercial and the residential traffic will not mix in the proposed layout. The proposed development is providing a 33-foot right-of-way, which does allow for street trees and allows for options for on-street parking, just allowing a more attractive street frontage. The architecture of these houses are proposed to be 100% brick facade on the front elevations, 70% on the rear and remaining elevations. There will be enhanced driveway elements and garage doors for this front entry product. There's a stipulation in the plan development that there can be no more repeating elevations, limited to every 5 lots. There are a number of alternate standards that are being requested with this plan development. The first is to allow non-radial lot lines. By our development standards, we require radial lot lines when there is a single-family residential off a cul-de-sac. As you can see in this exhibit right here, these are non-radial lot lines. This alternate standard that has been approved with many of these infill residential developments in the past. They're also requesting an alternate standard to allow driveway widths of more than 45% of the lot. Staff has no objection to this request, as they are still providing enough parking space in between lots, and with our Unified Development Code, they are required to provide a number of visitor parking, which they are compliant with this plan development. There's a requirement to allow a screening wall between the commercial and residential, as you can see on the western border here. With this requirement, there's a drainage area adjacent to the houses in the western boundary. What this would create is a masonry wall, a drainage area, and then the wooden screen wall. Often when you have a small corridor like this that is screened between 2 walls, it becomes a maintenance issue and just can come into a variety of nuisances there. Staff is in support since there is still privacy wall that is being proposed with the residential development. There is a request for an alternative standard to allow a wooden fence in lieu of a masonry fence along South Edmonds Lane. This development was originally sent into staff for review under our last development code. It was not brought in under the Unified Development Code. At the time, they were proposing a 10-foot landscape strip with trees along the area there in lieu of the masonry wall, so wood wall with some landscaping there. In the Unified Development Code, we now require both the masonry wall and the landscape strip, but as they had started this process prior to the adoption of the UDC, and they were working with staff to provide a softer boundary here, staff has no objection to this request. The last alternative standard is to allow reduced left lane, turn lane at the intersection. See, I think I have a better exhibit here. Here we go. This probably would have been easier. So this is the blue shaded area. Typically, they're required to have a 210-foot left turn lane, and they're proposing to reduce it to approximately 110 feet, and this is due to transmission power line conflict. Because of that conflict, and the staff has no objection to that alternative standard. The Lewisville 2025 Vision Plan update does designate this area as diverse and thriving neighborhoods, where staff feels that this development is accomplishing that goal of the plan. I'm happy to answer any questions you have, and the applicant is also here to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions for John?
John, is the cul-de-sac and the road leading to it, is that a standard curb and gutter, or is that going to be a roll-up curb?
I believe it is the
It's front-
mountable curbs.
Yeah,
with
it's front entry, so it'd have to be the mountable curb. So it's a 53-foot wide right-of-way with a 33-foot pavement when you have the mountable curb.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I will go ahead and open up the public hearing. And I understand that Mr. Durwood Scott would like to speak on this item.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
My name is Durwood Scott. I live at 1724 Shuford's Court, Lewisville, Texas, 75067. The first concern is what we got in the mail. I really don't think it's conducive to what's actually in our neighborhood. It marks everyone in the Oak Creek Estates, shows that they're townhomes, and those aren't townhomes. They're estate homes. I don't believe that this project is conducive with the neighborhood and the residents that's there. It's primarily residential all the way around with churches and all, and not townhomes, especially this small of lots. I'm concerned how close they are going to be backed up to other residents. Concerned for our tranquility, our privacy of how close these homes will be built. I don't see any right now. It was in my understanding there is an alleyway that's supposed to be between there, and I don't see any of that as far as an easement or an alleyway noticed. I may be wrong, but that was my understanding on our plots for our property. I'd have to relook at it. The height of these homes, if they're 2 stories, people being able to see over as close as what they are to the other residential houses that back up, being able to, if they're 2 stories, looking into our backyard, our back windows. Concerned about the size of them. They're already making one variances for the driveway of how much the parking will affect over there. Sorry, I wasn't expecting this when I was looking at the plot. I thought it was going to be more some commercial being built in there. Concerned about the noise and stuff from the construction during the project, how long the project's going to take, whatever is built there, as far as noise and dust and debris coming in across. What are the construction hours? If, I guess that's to be Saturday and Sundays. I mean, to stop working at 6. I mean, as far as our privacy coming home from work and stuff, if we have to listen to the construction going on during this time period. Mainly, biggest concerns is the height and how close they are going to be to the existing residents already there.
Okay. Staff, are you able to address any of Mr. Scott's concerns at this time?
As far as the height, the plan development standards limits these buildings to a maximum of 2.5 stories or 35 feet, which is standard for any recent single-family developments.
Okay.
And how close will these be to the existing homes?
So I think the concept plan you see there shows there are setback limits, which are a part of the plan development standards. There is a rear yard setback of a 5-foot minimum, which is typical in estate townhouse style developments. But most of these houses are further than a 5-foot setback. As far as the concern of an alleyway, I pulled the plats of these adjacent. I didn't see anything regarding alleyways. And they are front entry to the south, and these are also proposed to be front entry developments. Is there any concerns that you had that I missed there?
What the zero lot line, it just seems like we're crowding a lot of this. For the area in the neighborhood, that just seems unconducive to what even across the street or any, that you would allow that.
So in regards to the size, they are smaller than the homes to the south, and the lots are smaller than the homes to the south. To the north, you have multifamily housing. So it's one of those instances where you sort of have a gradation from a larger single family to a more dense multifamily product. These are detached homes. I do believe they all have side yards. And so it is a detached single family product, not a townhouse that's being built. They are smaller lots, but they are minimum 40-foot wide, which does allow for the driveway to meet our driveway standards when it's in the front, not taking more than 40% of the lot width. And it also allows for there to be adequate space for people to park on street if they're guests or visiting or what have you.
What's the definition for multifamily?
So the cottages on Edmonds are the multifamily development to the north that I'm referring to.
Okay. Just one small area, but everyone else is single-family residential, except for that, which used to be, I believe, a nursing home or assisted living that they changed to cottages. Other than that, most everything is churches or residential, single-family residence.
Mm-hmm.
Until you get around over to Bel Air. And then there's all right, thank you.
Okay, well, Mr. Scott, I would encourage you to also come to the city council meeting where this will be addressed again for final. Richard will give us that date here in a minute, and express your concerns that time too.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item before I close the public hearing? Okay, at this time I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, is there any discussion or questions?
Is this, just a quick question, is this going to be a gated community? You know?
It will not be a gated community.
There is a required garage door setback, correct? And what is that?
Yes, as a part of the PD, the garage has to be set back 20 feet from the from the right-of-way, but there's no front setback for the door or anything in that case.
So that ensures the parking capacity in the driveway itself, more so than maybe on the street?
Correct, and they're meeting our parking standards, which is a garage space and at least 2 parking spaces on site.
Any other discussion, questions, concerns? If not, may I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the zone change requested. And the 5 associated alternative standards as it was presented to us.
I second.
Okay, if a motion is by Francis, second by Aram. Vote now. Motion passes 7-0.
Commissioners, this item will be considered by the City Council on Monday, September the 11th, 2023 at 7:00 p.m., where they will hold a second public hearing and make a final decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Okay, last item on the agenda for this evening is adjournment. May I have a motion, please?
Move to adjourn.
Motion by Aram.
Second.
Second by Rick.
Hold on 1 second. I'm so sorry.
Vote now. Motion passes 7-0. We are adjourned.